All right. Hi, everyone. It's Shannon Port, and it's good to be here. Oh my gosh, I've been on for 15 seconds and I didn't know it. It's good to be here. I actually had this scheduled as a scheduled live stream, and when I went to do it because of the encoding software, I wasn't able to go live. So we're here today spontaneously, which is another good reason to subscribe, because then you get a notification. If you subscribe and hit the notification bell, when we do our live streams, you get a little text that lets you know that we're getting on, and you can come join us in the chat. So it's really good to be here. We have a lot of energy flowing right now, and I'm curious to hear how you are experiencing. Hi, we actually today, as I'm doing this live stream, we have Venus squaring Saturn. Venus is in Libra at 13 degrees, squaring Saturn exact, and Saturn is in Capricorn at 13. So 13 also is a nice number. I have Venus. Venus is in my third house. So forgive me, Goddess help me. I'm being squared by Saturn as I communicate with you today, but I think it's good. We have a lot to talk about. So let's just take a moment. Oh, I have a couple things I want to say. I didn't get a chance to post, and I will speak a minute or two at the end of this video, but actually a couple of really big things. On Friday, I'm doing a free webinar, which I have never done. I am so excited about this. I'm going to come back and post a link. I send it out in the Akashic Insight newsletter. And so I'll put a little sign up link for the Akashic Insight newsletter under the description of this video. And so it's my Akashic Insight newsletter is just a monthly Akashic archetypal reading that I do for the planet, and it's actually really wonderful. So it's kind of a bonus. I can really feel, oh my God, I can really feel the Venus square Saturn, and it's been on like the past few days. First of all, the energy is just, it's really intense right now. I'd love to hear in the chat. Let me know where you guys are at today and how you're experiencing life. So this is what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the higher heart activation, because we're going to really focus on, we just had the Libra equinox, and I did a writing on Art of the Feminine about balance and the power of balancing the masculine and the feminine within our own being, in our heart. It's very significant. Libra is a sign of justice and balance and beauty, ruled by Venus. And Venus is in Libra today and will be at the time of the super new moon this Saturday on September 28th. But Libra, in the sign of Venus in the sign of Libra, is a cardinal air sign. So there's a lot of energy there. It's more of an initiatory energy in Libra than it is in Taurus. In Taurus, Libra, Venus is really grounded and sensual. And oh, nice to see you. Yeah, a lot of things falling away for sure. But Venus in Libra is almost intellectual. But I'm going to talk about today why Venus in Libra is actually about drawing in the breath into the heart space. Libra is very, very connected to the heart. In the deep work I do when I teach the Inner Mystery School of Divine Love, the heart really represents, and Libra, when the Kundalini Shakti is active in the heart center, that's Libra. Because that's when we truly have the power to balance. When we have the Kundalini active in the heart, when it's run through our system, but when we really live in heart frequency, which is what we're going to talk about today, everything starts to harmonize around us. And that's why Libra rules harmony and beauty and balance. We become living portals and living transmissions of that balance and of that God force, that goddess force on Earth. And so we'll take a moment. What we're going to do is we'll look at where the planets are. I can definitely feel where they are right now. Okay, I know what I want to say. So I'm doing this webinar Um, because I'm doing for the very first time ever, I'm doing group mentoring. As most of you who know my work know, I do one-on-one mentoring, but starting next week, I'm doing a group mentoring. So the webinar on Friday is going to be an introductory, but we're going to go deep into the divine feminine wisdom on a very, very special topic. We're going to be talking about the aura of beauty. And so that's what that webinar is about. I'm going to pull in three key things that have come up in my work that are profound and can profoundly influence the auric field. The training I'm doing next week is actually for women. It's the first time ever I'm doing an all women's group, but the webinar is for everyone. So if you want to come join us on Friday, but the other thing is Sunday, huge live stream we're doing for Pluto Saturn conjunction, January 12th, 2020. I've basically been holding my tongue for several videos to about the information that I want to share, but we're going to talk about that on Sunday. This coming Sunday, I'm going to do a live stream for the Pluto-Saturn conjunction that will be exact in January 2020. There's a lot to talk about. Some of it we'll bring in today. So let's look at this Libra supermoon. The supermoon means that the new moon is very close to the Earth. The moon governs the fluctuation of our thoughts and our emotions. It's like it's the harnessing. Now we have different levels and octaves of lunar energy. Some of it is very dark and underworldy, very labyrinth, trickstery, fourth dimensional underbelly of human consciousness. And that's where all the darkness enters through that lunar force. There's also a very high aspect of the divine feminine, which is the high lunar portal. They connect, and they especially connect through the cycles. When you know the cycles, those two are merging together, very much like the merging of the polarities in the heart of Libra. So at this new moon, this is a new moon. New moons are very, very potent for placing your heart's intention into form. You plant the seed. I know you're aware of this, but when it's a new moon, it's extra amplified. And if you use Libra, you use this wisdom we're going to talk about today, which is the archetype of Libra, and you connect it with the house it falls in. So for me, let's see, it's going to fall in the new moon falls in my second house. Yeah, but Venus right now today is in my third house, but the new moon is going to be at 5 degrees, 5 degrees of Libra. So find out where 5 degrees of Libra is at for you. You're going to find out what house it's in, and the house that it rules will be connected to the intention you really, really want to make. And so mine is in my second house, so it's going to be connected to other Venus values of the house of Taurus, because Taurus is the second house. It rules sensuality and earth and nature and values and material surroundings and beauty. And so I'm definitely going to make a good intention around that. All right, so that is what the new moon is. And when it's a super moon, it's extra close to the earth. So this is a powerful super new moon. All right, so let's look at the planets. I'm just going to check in with you guys and see who's here and if there's anything. Lots of delays, yeah. Oh, I can't wait to get to talk about a little bit about what's going on right now, because huge things are happening with technology. I mean, the world is changing. The world is actually changing really fast. Things are starting to really when I do the video on Sunday, we're going to go into why we're going down a slippery, fast moving slide right now. And things are changing every day. There are things put into motion that most human beings are not really aware of. And so the energy that we're going to talk about today that I can really use right now is the breath. How to use the life breath to activate the human heart, the higher heart. The lower human heart is very much manipulated by the emotional body. It accesses the lower emotions. It can feel really good. It's a lot of what we think of as romance and passion is of the lower heart. It's wavering. It comes and it goes. We feel it one day, it's gone the next day. One day we love somebody, the next day we can't stand them and we want them out of our life. That's the lower heart. Most of our interactions, many of our interactions as human beings in this world are connected to the lower heart, meaning we can feel and things feel really good, but they're not steady. They're not that harmonious balance that we find when Libra is really active with Kundalini Shakti in the heart. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. So let's look at the planets. We have the moon and the sun at 5 degrees of Libra at the time of the new moon on Saturday. And so Chiron, the wounded healer, is in Aries at 3 degrees, will be opposite this new moon, this new supermoon in Libra. I wrote a little bit about this, but the Libra Aries axis, and so Aries actually rules our vision. And our vision is very key to how we balance in the heart. So when we have a skewed vision of reality, we create chaos. We create self-centeredness, very selfishness. Aries can be like the war god. I mean, Aries rules greed and war and self-initiative, but it can rule the me. And it can also rules one of the rulers of the patriarchy, Aries and Capricorn. The two cardinal signs really have a strong role in what we call our patriarchy and what we call the climate on planet Earth. We have right now, the Aries energy is inverted, it's imbalanced, and it has to do with our vision. And we're going to talk about that. The way we see, the way humanity sees things is how we create our reality. Now, our vision is not even true vision. It's not the high vision. The truth is that when Aries rules with vision. So when we come into vision, we get our high divine masculine power, and we can see the truth. When we can see the truth, we correspond with Aries' wife, Libra, and then we can come into balance and we create beauty and harmony. The archetype for Aries is also key for the Emperor, which also works through the archetype of Libra, which is key 11, balance. And together they activate the archetype of Pisces. This is going kind of deep, which is the underbelly. And I talked a lot about the underbelly. That Pisces full moon was a big one. We just had the Pisces full moon. That Pisces full moon governs the underbelly of consciousness. And so when Aries is in alignment, when we have our divine masculine emperor power really insightful and keen, we balance the heart. That's what actually brings the Kundalini power into the heart. So we have Chiron in Aries, and Chiron is in Aries is trying to get us to heal that side of humanity that is just all about war and greed and exploiting the earth, corporate domination, all of these things, but also it's linked to the way we're using technology as well. And I'm going to tie that in just a moment. Okay. So Libra's opposite the new moon and the sun at the time on Saturday, on the 28th. And so that means that Chiron is really wanting to aid us in this new start to balance our heart. Venus is in Libra. Venus, the ruler of Libra, is in the sign of Libra, squaring Saturn. And that's what I think I put in the description for the video, that we have huge energies with Chiron, Venus, Pluto, and Saturn. Venus is squaring Saturn. Venus is exact square with Saturn today. So what that means is that, so Saturn in Capricorn just went direct. And on the 18th of September, Saturn is direct. It's going to move. I think it's going to be at 14 at the time of the new moon. It's still at 13 right now, where it's stationed direct. But this is going to be the amp up in the lead in to the 2020 conjunction of Saturn and Pluto. So Saturn is just starting to get going. It's going to square off with Venus. It's in that position right now. The heart energy in its own sign, which is very strong, giving the signal to Saturn that although there are huge changes coming, Saturn's almost signaling to Venus saying, wake up. We have to wake up. The archetype of Libra in the human heart before all the, what hits the fan, what's coming with the Pluto-Saturn conjunction. Things are changing fast, and it's the most important thing we have. This is the age of the heart. We have to understand the power of our own heart. it's our heart that's going to save humanity. And unfortunately, most people are so hooked up to the inorganic, to technology, and I'm going to talk a lot about that on Sunday, that the heart energy is lost in the ocean of the signals from technology in a way that feels connected, but not so much. It's not as great as the organic connection from the heart. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that. Mercury is in Libra at 23 degrees, also squaring Pluto. Libra will be square, or Venus is squaring Pluto too. So they're squaring, Venus and Mercury are squaring Saturn and Pluto. Mercury, not so much Saturn. But Mercury is definitely hitting hard with Pluto at the time. So that's communication. And that means that we could hear about something that has to do with balance, or the shadow, which would be imbalance at the time of the new moon. We have Mars in Virgo at 26 degrees. What did I want to say about Mars? Well, Mars is trining. We have some strong earth energy because Mars in Virgo, Mars is trine to Pluto. And we'll say a little bit more about Mars later. We have Jupiter in Sagittarius at 17 degrees direct and starting to move now. We talked about Saturn in Capricorn, Pluto at 23 degrees Capricorn. Pluto is actually stationing direct on October 3rd. So those two, so now leading up to January, we have Pluto and Saturn both direct in Capricorn. And so the momentum is moving forward, and Jupiter's direct too. And those planets are all Jupiter's going to enter Capricorn. This is big, and we'll be talking more about it. All right, Uranus retrograde in Taurus. Oh, I know what I wanted to say. Oh, it's so big that Saturn is conjunct the North Node. It's conjunct the South Node, excuse me. Right now, Saturn is exact conjunct the South Node. It will be starting to move away from the South Node at the time of the new moon because it will be at 14 degrees. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about heart energy. Just going to take a moment and see what's going on here. That's good. Oh yeah, the generational stuff. Somebody just said Pluto and Libra generation is very interesting area. Yes, it is. And also Pluto and Scorpio is a lot of the millennials, and that's huge. I want to speak to that because I work with a lot of millennials. So millennials are dealing with relationships a lot, but they're going to have to learn power and merging. And so you see there's a big interest in relationships on the internet right now. There's a lot of relationship coaches, a lot of information out there. It's interesting how it's coming in because there's a lot of things that are going to come in before the big shift happens for that Pluto in Scorpio generation. And I think we'll talk about that when we do the next live stream with the Pluto-Saturn conjunction, because that Pluto-Saturn conjunction is going to actually activate the Pluto in Scorpio generation. And Pluto in Libra, yes, very much so. All right. I mean, Pluto in Libra. Yeah, I know a lot of Pluto and Libra people. All right. So the heart is the access to 0 point. That's perfect balance. And that's where we're actually able to bring in our divine power. We have human power, we have egoic power, and it's great. We can get things done. We have our own human will, which is really fantastic. And the mind can do really powerful things. But the divine force of love comes through the heart when there's balance. It's the true balance between masculine and feminine. We have a masculine and feminine pole on the planet because the pole of creation is made up between a strong masculine and feminine pole. Different humans, whether you're a male or female, have a different relationship with those poles. And so not all men are manifesting strong masculine energies, and not all women are manifesting all feminine energies. And it's meant to be that way. Nature creates a variety, but there is, regardless, a strong masculine pole, an electric pole, and a strong magnetic pole that govern the earth. And they also govern the poles of our being. In our body, they're represented by the back of the neck and by the solar plexus, and so or actually the sacrum. These are two deep esoteric points that join the above lunar forces with the lower lunar forces. And so it's really important that we understand that to access true heart energy, we have to have some idea of how to balance those poles within us. On the planet, there has to remain a strong emissive pole and a strong magnetic pole, and that very much is connected to gender and the polarity that creates human life. It's a very key thing to understand. It's getting a lot of heat right now, and there's a lot of changes happening that are related to technology and the direction we're going. But this is Libra is the sign of that balance, because when we balance our shadow and light, when we balance our masculine and feminine, when we balance our water and our fire, when we balance our mind and our heart, we have so much power. It just means that we bring them into relationship with one another. Um, it might not mean they're not static. There's always a flow and a movement, and it's important to understand that. But the way we run our emotional energy and our mental energy is very much dependent on this Libra balance energy. Libra rules relationships. And I wrote about this just a couple days ago at the equinox, because the equinox was about that balance, and the huge portal opened at the equinox. We have to master and understand relationship. Everything in our life is relationship. There's nothing, unless you're sitting, and even if you're sitting at home breathing by yourself, you're in relationship with the inner plane and with your inner self. In fact, the more you have that relationship cultivated, the more you'll be able to deal with the outer world and manifest relationships where you are in your power, where you can speak clearly, where you're not triggered by everything that gets thrown in your face. Because the way things are going now is that it will either be trigger consciousness that's dominating, or it will be a complete manipulation where you're not even in charge of your own thoughts. We're so hooked up to technology that every little acupuncture point in our brain and in our auric field is being triggered, and we're just following the flow. You go online, this pops up, you do that, you look at your phone. In fact, as I was writing this letter a couple days ago, I was sitting on the floor and I realized I had a MacBook Pro to my right, a MacBook Air here, a MacBook Air here, and an iPhone. It's a lot of Apple. It's not to plug Apple, but had a lot of technology. And I just looked around and I was surrounded by technology. And it actually, I was getting ready to write for the Pluto-Saturn conjunction. It really showed me what's happening with social media and with our technology. We are so plugged into it. I know what I want to say. I'm going to say this because it has to do with relationships, because it has to do with school and education and children, and I will be talking more to it. When we do the live stream on Sunday, I have a 14-year-old who just entered high school, and I just went to a parents' back to school night where you go in and you go around all the classes, and he's in a really good school. He just started high school. But you go for like 10 minutes and sit and talk to all the teachers, and there was not one teacher. There was only one. There was actually one, and he was young. He was a millennial, and he was like a newer teacher, very, very great teacher. But he wasn't so much into it. He did mention it, but the veteran teachers had something that every single one of them had one thing to say as they started their presentation to the parents. And a lot of these were like advanced placement gifted classes. They were saying, students have changed drastically. They said they're good students, but what's happening is that kids don't read anymore, and they don't write. A lot of children, they don't write as much because everything's done now on computer. That when they go to write, a lot of them are really stunted or not able to write fluently. And one teacher was laughing, saying it's hard to believe. They don't cross their T's and cross their T's and dot their I's, but they were being very serious. The other thing they said, they talked about the attention span, how if it's not technology, the attention span has changed drastically. And none of the teachers were blaming the children at all. One of the teachers actually said she had to create a place for it because this is high school and they're allowed to have their phones. She had to create a phone hanger in the back of the class because it was foreign language teacher. And she said, I had to have them set their phones back. She said, even just them being there, that even if they're not on them, it prevents them from being able to focus. So she created this thing and she said that the kids call it phone jail because they come into so-and-so's class and they have to drop their phone off in the back of the class and the kids call it phone jail. Like my phone's in jail because I don't have it right now. So this is, I really like technology and use it, but this is something we have to look at because something is happening and it's moving very fast. Very fast. When people no longer read and aren't writing, there's certain parts of our brain, especially our right brain, that are connected to reading long pieces of material and that are connected to writing, especially the old-fashioned cursive writing. There's parts of our right brain that develop and that open our heart through some of these things that are being replaced. And so it's something, Libra rules art. And so in that way, it rules the way we synthesize and create beauty. We cannot hand over our power to create beauty in conversation and in eye contact with real human beings. We cannot lose that power to write out something that flows through our mind, through our heart, and through our hands onto the written page. There's something profoundly primal about that is really important. Even it's like painting. It's like if you're a painter or if you're an artist, you're a performing artist. If you're a dancer or you're in theater, you understand that the way the body moves in space is, I mean, and it doesn't mean you might not love computer programs where you're creating dance, where you're creating art. They're powerful and they're beautiful. But when you move through space, and I work with this, in light body yoga, I teach something called light body dance. And when you access the ethers through movement, your brain is heightened and your heart is heightened. Even our sexuality, person to person rather than person to computer, is a dance. And many people are actually pulled away from having human interactions because they have everything they need on computer. This is really big. Never before have we been at this place. We've always had chaos on the earth. We've always had war. We've always had inequality in this whole last cycle, but never before have we been in a place where people are just staring into something to actually enter into it with all their emotional and mental power. The emotions and the heart are what balance us in Libra and what create our surroundings around us. If we're getting smaller and smaller and contracting into our own space without having interactions in our communities, something big happens that we'll talk more about. So this is big. This is what I want to say. Do it now. Open your heart so that you can stay anchored as these changes take place. We have huge changes coming. Our financial, technology, the way we are governed, the way we are viewed and watched, it's all changing. It's all becoming digital. And slowly but surely, we're rolling out or handing over things that we have always taken for granted. But the younger you go, you realize, and even, with some of the younger millennials don't actually, and this is the point that some people are making, don't understand the context of history. And then the younger you go, don't even understand the context of like, what, I always tell my son, like, we used to just, like, when we had family get-togethers, or we used to just go out and play outside. I mean, that's what you did. You got together with your friends, you ran outside, you played, you ran around in nature, you came in sweating, you came in hungry, you came in, wanting to talk to your parents and tell them what you did. It wasn't where you just looked into something to connect to people. So things are changing. But he actually told me, I had a really great conversation with my son about this, and he said that he told me that his friends, they all talk about this, and I was shocked. I never knew that before. He said, "Oh no, my guy friends and I sit around and talk about what's happening and why and how we're aware of it. And so I thought that was really cool because if 14-year-olds are aware of it, to change, yeah. Yeah, it's huge. So that's really cool. It was really cool to hear that they're talking about it because we're human. Overall, we're human. So it's not the technology itself. The technology is meant to serve, but it's how it's used. It's how it's used. It's how it's used and who has control of it and how sovereign we are. This is leading into the big conversation on Sunday. So make sure to come back and join on Sunday. Um, all right. All right. So let's talk about so what's happening is this is also something I'll talk about more on Sunday, but what's happening is that this celebrity culture is taking over because there's so much social media. Even the big platforms they're starting to move in and reorganize everything so that it's very celebrity oriented. So now there's this kind of superficial desire of everyone to be celebrity. Part of that is good. It's part of that's good to understand your power and understand stepping out, but there's a deep, deep lust, deep, deep vanity that's growing seeds in the heart. It activates the lower heart and it's vicious. It's the lower feminine energy and it's the most powerful energy of the shadow. And so what's happening is that from a young age now, the new generation is being taught you are your platform. You're not your mom and your dad and your friends, but you are your platform, and your platform is worth money. And you are worth money and value when you have a platform. And we could go on and on and on about this, but this is something we'll be talking about. The question is, how do we maintain beauty and harmony in art? We can't stop evolution. We incarnated here at this time for this purpose, but this is big, and this is all about the Libra new moon, the intention that can really be powerful for all of us at this Libra new moon is to remember how powerful relationships are. Nobody on Facebook or YouTube or Instagram is going to come save you when your car stalls or when your child is sick or when you need to borrow $100 or when no, I mean that could happen on social media. I've seen it, but or bring you dinner when you're sick. We have to have real relationships. And in order for the heart to evolve, we have to put ourselves out there for love. Now, Scorpio rules the deeper aspect. We're going to go into leading up until 2020. This is going to get serious. So if you guys know my work is in the divine feminine wisdom, and I specialize in the archetypes. And so we're going to be riding this wave up to 2020 January and really doing some deep, deep inner work. Scorpio rules that, and this is why Scorpio and Pluto and Scorpio affects millennials. It rules how we lose ourselves in love and how we commit. Commitment has become quite an issue. I see a lot of people talking about relationships and sex and, all the ins and outs of it, but real love is accessed in commitment. Libra is the beginning of understanding that because we harmonize with someone that we are committing to. Now, this doesn't mean selling out or giving our power away. Obviously, we make mistakes all the time in relationships, but Libra is the beginning of marriage. It's the beginning of saying, okay, how are we harmonizing and how can that create beauty around us? When you know your heart is active and you love someone deeply, it's very healthy to want to go into the next level because that's spiritual growth. If that is stunted and the human heart can no longer take that next step, it doesn't matter what it looks like for you, but if everything is just lust and fair weather and, oh, I'm on social media with you, but I can turn that off, that's not going to develop the heart. And what's going to happen is the lower heart's going to get really, really active. And these energies on right now are trying to let us know that there's a shadow and light to everything that's happening. And now is the time to wake up because you want to be able to help those around you. I want to read this comment. Real world people and relationships seem to be no longer present to others' needs either, especially if the humanitarian act isn't highly public and noticed. It breaks my heart as a soul ache level. That is brilliant. And thank you for saying that. this was coming to me, that exact thing came to me this morning, that when people are together, they're thinking about how they can take a picture and post it on social media. For one, because they don't want to let their platform, dwindle in views. And for two, because it feels like the event didn't happen unless it is promoted in some way and curated. There's nothing wrong with that. We all have the desire to share, and the platform of social media has given us a wonderful tool to do that. But we're going into the dark side of it now. We've already passed it. We're going into it. When children are groomed that that's your value, it's gone. We've already passed over the threshold, and now it's going to be about anchoring back and writing this transformation. Yeah, I have to tell you, I think I mentioned this in a video, but when I went home to see my parents this summer, and I loved spending a week with my mom and dad because they're not hooked up to technology. And they have a computer, but they're not on social media. And so they are so present. And parents aren't even really present for their kids anymore. A photographer did this. I have a lot of photographers are doing this now, and I'm going to talk to that in just a second because parents are hooked up. It's crazy. At these, anyway, we'll talk about that in a minute. To sit with my mom and dad is so nurturing because they're really there. And it's really rare to just be sitting with people that aren't kind of like grabbing for something. It doesn't really exist anymore. To sit with somebody and have full conscious present with the heart it is you go to the store. I say this all the time. I go to the store and there's not one person that's not walking around looking down. Or I used to I love having eye contact with people because it's really beautiful to just, I don't like to force it, but when somebody looks up and you just have a moment, oh, it's so powerful because it's human energy and the angels work through that. Literally, the angelic forces, which are the higher elementals, work through our eyes, and that's Aries. When we are tuned in and in our heart through our eyes, the eyes are the window to the soul. The higher God forces are there. So when you have eye contact with another human being and you're breathing at your love rate, your heart frequency, which is higher heart activation, what's happening is that the energy of ascension and consciousness being raised is happening. It's not the distracted energy. To give that's when listening happens, and the heart is activated. And there's some deep mysteries in this. The heart is to hear, and you can see the word hear in heart. The heart is listening, it's receiving. And even if you're on the spiritual path, 50% of your time needs to be spent listening or more. Once you start, like if you're on the spiritual path or you're a healer or you're distributing spiritual information, if you want to be an authentic portal, there's a lot of time spent in that Noggle space, spent in the inward space, because that's where the regeneration and the gifts of presence come. There's a saying, this is a classic old saying, but the past is history, the future is a mystery. All we have is the moment, the now. I can't remember how that last part goes, but the past is history. The present, or the future is a mystery, but all we have is now. And that's why it's called the present. The present is a gift. I'm sure you all know that. It's an old school saying, but it's so true. That's Libra. That's the balance of the heart. In this moment is the present, is the gift. And that's the only way we listen. I know the energies are strong right now. I know even coming on to do this video, it's like, balancing, but we're going to talk about the breath and then I'll close out. So, okay, I think we're good on time. Present as a gift. Yeah. Yeah. What's happening behind the curtain is big. It is big. It's big. It's big. The technology has become, it is so far ahead of what we realize. And, I'll even have a thought and see it in my Instagram newsfeed. It's big. It's big, and you hear about things in like China. You hear about social credit scores. These things are big. They're really big, and so something that we need to really be aware of, but not lose our power. To know that these things are happening, but to know that we're the artists of our own reality. I wrote about that on Art of the Feminine, and that's what it's really about. So, um, let me see. I'm going to see if there's any questions. I just want to say something else. I'll wait and just check in and see if there's anything. Sometimes I don't see everything, and I'm sorry. Sometimes I miss them because it's harder to read when it's millennial daughter was upset. Oh, wow. Over celebrity. You know what? This is what, okay, so I'm going to say something that's a millennial chose, their child chose, oh, okay. So the millennial's daughter was upset that her BF's mom was disappointed. Yes, that he chose school and career over celebrity. Well, here's the thing. And it's so funny. I randomly saw this video with Madonna doing an interview with Oprah. So crazy. It's so old school. It was back when Madonna was probably the biggest star on the planet. It was when she did the Ray of Light album. She was at her peak, and she still is the biggest pop star that ever was. I mean, like in terms of the record she set and all of that. And this isn't the normal thing I would watch, but it came up and I was so glad. Oprah was asking her, what would you say about what you've learned about you? Because she was on top of the world. This is before social media. And I don't even know if she feels that way now, because like the fact is that a lot of people have gone down, have degenerated in their ideas because it's such an addictive thing. But she said, fame is not what you think it is. It was certainly not what I thought it was going to be. And she knew, she went for it full force. And she said, like she says in her song, I got exactly what I asked for. She got exactly what she asked for: fame, success, and enough money to buy whatever she wanted in the entire world. And she talked about it, that it does not equal happiness. It absolutely does not equal happiness. And I know quite a few famous people who are I mean, the trauma and the anxiety and the things that go on in their personal life, it's a lot of it's a show, the fame part. And so we have to understand what fame really is. There's definitely a feeling of riding that wave when you're getting a little more successful or things are coming to you, but it activates that vanity and that lust. It gets it going and it activates the lower heart. And without even realizing it, you can think you're grounded and in it. It bites. It bites you. And I think there's a big bite coming for all of us. So, oh gosh, I think that's it. I'm gonna just organic technology. Let's talk about the breath before we finish. Um, so the breath. The breath is the life force. The breath is the divine. Everything organic breathes, meaning all the cells and atoms and molecules, everything in our body is breathing. It's the way the God force enters our vehicle. We can connect with our pure power when we breathe. But I've said this, I don't know if it was in Light Body Yoga or some training or in videos. I think I've said it on these videos. I've said it on these videos. Watch how your breath is when you're on social media. Like when you're dazed off and you're just kind of like going with the flow and you realize you've been on it, or when you're triggered, or when you're competing, or when you're looking at things and comparing, notice how you're breathing. And just notice in general how we're breathing now. It's the ultimate understanding of your consciousness, because there are certain rhythms of breath that cannot be overtaken or manipulated, or they are what balances our emotional body. And these frequencies, I call it light body breath when I'm working with it, are so powerful, and they're so available to us, but not unless we need to use our free will to use them. They're so simple. Somebody in one of my pages just wrote that, something about breath, and it's free. But notice how this is huge too. I'll leave you with this. The dark forces, the dark energy on this planet, the negative forces, the lower dimensional, astral, fourth dimensional, lower lunar forces that are governing this reality. Make no mistake, this reality, there's a hard force controlling it, and out for soul energy and mind energy. That energy it is trying to take the breath away. It's like trying to suck the breath out of you, and to put your breath and train your breath on a different pattern, and train your heart on a different pattern. The breath is the balancer of it. And there was one other thing I was going to say. I can't. What was I? It just stole it from me. um, it brings light into the body. Prana is light, and the sunlight fluid, the magical fluid of awakening, it moves on the breath. Our digestion moves on our breath. Our sexuality moves on the breath. If we have an addiction and we learn how to breathe, you will have more profound results of, even when I notice myself reaching for something. I've noticed now, if I'm reaching for something unconscious, just because it's a habit and it's what I do, I catch it and I just breathe for a minute, and the impulse to go in that direction completely shifts and something new rises up. So just taking moments to really tune in. I have, my meditation has now become, I work with some really beautiful music. I'm working with Tibetan bowls in a heart chakra meditation, and it's so subtle. It's so just so low key and really beautiful, but it's just enough to vibrate with the heart beating. One thing you do have to be aware of, though, is a lot of these technology meditation apps are, sound is a way to program heartbeat and breath rate, and so there's different things we need to be aware of. We need to look for what's organic and what feels really good. So I think that's it. Did I say everything? We're gonna go deep into the dark stuff, the real issue of Pluto and Saturn and Capricorn and what's happening in the world on Sunday. But I just want to wish everyone a really powerful super new moon in Libra. It's wonderful to have you. If you enjoy the video, make sure to give it a like and subscribe if you want to be notified. When you hit the little subscription bell, it will send you a text when we go live. I would love to have you. And other than that, I will come back and put the link for the Akashic Insight newsletter. And so wishing you peace and blessings always, and I will see you soon. Namaste.